my people, what's up? Welcome back to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. I am your host, Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by for this book chat. We're going to put the games down just for a bit, except for the one game I got over here. We're going to be chatting the Dresden Files. I put up a call out on Twitter for any content creator. I just finished Peace Talks and Battleground, the 16 to 17 books, which released this year after a very long wait, about 5 years. So was so excited. I'm like, I got to talk to about somebody. Put the call out on Twitter. This man replied. He is Chris Whitpan from the Game All Nite channel, from Renegade Game Studios, and you may have seen him in many, many different cons this year. He is definitely no stranger to the gaming community. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason. Am I people's now? I feel excited.
Yo, you are my peoples. You are officially you were always my peoples. So so Chris worked with me before. We did an episode on deck builders, and he did a little sound clip for Clank.
Yep.
So Clank being your favorite deck builder, which a choice of which I approve.
And long before I worked for Renegade, I'll have you know, like that.
You didn't sneak an ad on my show.
Nope. That was not an ad, and that was not. I just want to, like, it is by far my favorite deck builder, and I still love it, and yeah, it's great. It's like the wife and I still play it constantly.
Chris is a great dude. No hesitation. He just finished Battleground himself. So we are here to chat about it. Yeah, I pulled out the game. I did review the game and talk about it and everything, but that is not what we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk books. Excellent.
I don't know anything about it. So yeah,
right.
I literally just finished it last week. Like within 3 days. It's been a long time since a book's released and I had to read it right away. Right? Like it's been a very long time, and this was certainly one of them.
They set it up. So 15 books. I have a previous video on the channel if you have no idea what this is. By the way, we're gonna do. I think we'll do like kind of just impressions, like light spoilers, and then we'll kind of like wall and then talk like the full thing.
We'll see. I don't know if I'm good at that, but we'll try. Okay.
I may actually, just forget it. I had this grand plan. I'm like, we're going to do something for the unwashed. No. We're just going to go whole hog, Dresden fans. So I did a video just summing up 1 to 15, catching you up and everything. So please, Harry is at a certain spot. Harry has definitely, a lot has happened. Harry the Dresden, the wizard, who is behind Chris right now, looking all brooding and all that kind of thing. There he is. He has leveled up. He has lost all sorts of stuff. He had a house. Now he doesn't have a house. He got an island to replace his house. He has become the Winter Knight. He has signed up with the Queen of Air and Darkness, Land of Fairy, Mab. So he is the chief lieutenant for her. He has lost, a lover. He got a daughter. So much has happened. So much to kind of get the investment going. And now, and then Skin Game happened. I don't know if you remember the Skin Game novel. I actually thought that was my favorite.
Yeah.
Book 15 was imagine that.
Yeah, it was, I fell into Dresden because when I was looking for books and multiple people recommended it, right? And it was just that's what I listened to.
Audiobook, huh?
I used to have a lot of commutes, so I totally tore up the audiobooks, and it was great because they were all there.
Right.
But one of the things I have to say is Butcher is amazing. We haven't gotten to the spoiler stuff, and we'll hold off on that a little bit.
Okay,
right?
Well, I won't do the spoiler stuff just yet. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as we start talking about the book specifically, we can do that. But I love the tension ramp that he has built and the growth he has built into Harry's character. Sure. He really starts out pretty shallow and for himself, and just to see the depth that he has grown throughout the books. And then, I don't know about you, but I kind of felt like, oh, he's going to wrap this up. And then I will say my impression on the other end is they ain't wrapping this up.
No. It was announced there's going to be 25 books in the series.
I believe it, and
Right.
I think there's still a ton of stories. Like
Right.
I'd love Michael's story. I'd love to hear
Hmm.
more of that. He's given vignettes right throughout the
Yeah,
series,
like
but
briefcases and side
yeah,
jobs. So you get like little splashes of other characters.
right. But
Hmm.
I think Michael could be a series. I definitely Molly, right? I mean, she's
Whoa.
super, and
Wow.
when
Yeah.
we talk more about that later, super complex and very interesting. So,
Hmm.
happy to blow through this one. It was so good, so good.
Yeah, I mean, like you could tell, like, because he grew, like the author grew up with the series. It's
Yeah,
almost like reading Harry Potter in a sense of like, young that you could see the development, right? So like,
right,
and you could see the development of books. Like, the first five books are like, Rock'em Sock'em, Harry gets his butt kicked all over the place. There's werewolves and vampires and everything, and then like the investment adds up. Like he gets Molly as a ward. Now he has something to care about, and he gets Mouse, who's like Mouse is like going on adventures with him. He cares about him. So like the level of him being invested in caring about stuff, along with blowing things up, and like
right.
kind of keeping that case to the moment, and then like changes happens, and then like the cases go out the window. No
Yeah,
more cases. Now we're just like beating, like basically leveling up and beating the big bad monsters of like the sky and all that kind of thing.
right.
And
Which is
now we're at the point, and this is something that Chris was
yeah,
mentioning. So skinning happens, skin game, they invade hell, and it's like a big caper, and it's all awesome. And then we get to these books. So we'll do light spoilers, and then I'll kind of like
yeah,
just I don't even know if that's like worth it, but I don't know. Who cares? Just in
yeah.
case for that one or two people who made it to book 15, but they are doing this. So now like we have this kind of like this cosmic, like Harry in the pantheon of like powerful beings, and then we get peace talks, which was really like kind of an in-breath, right?
Yeah.
Like peace talks was just kind of like, and I think that's why we were looking forward to Battleground so much, because peace talks was like, okay, all right.
Yeah. And you know what? To be fair, it's one book,
Pretty
Peace
much, yeah.
Talks and Battleground. Really, when you're considering the way it reads, it literally drops a cliffhanger and starts it. It's like a mid-season cliffhanger,
Right.
if you remember those
Yeah, right.
back when TV was great.
Back when you like got one episode at a time as opposed to
Right.
all at once.
Right, and it was definitely like a cliffhanger. It was a very slow ramp up. It was a lot about the character building, which I think was great because it gave us the ability to care for some characters
Mhm.
that I don't think we had a ton of investment in or knowledge of. So I think it kind of gave us some time to absorb them a little bit more.
Right.
For instance, Molly isn't even in book one, right? She's just like one or two little things here and there, and
Yeah,
that's
she's
kind
like
of
hanging
it.
out on the side, and like she kind of
Yeah,
hooks things up, and like so
exactly.
she's the Winter Queen, which is something we know from the previous books. I think that happened in Cold Days.
Right.
So like her and they work for the same boss basically, and they kind of have these demigod powers. Although Molly's a level up where like she's literally turning into a fairy. I think,
Yeah.
right? I think that's
Oh
what's
yeah.
happening.
It's totally slowly taking her over bit
Right.
by bit, right?
Right, where I don't know if that's happening for Harry. I think that it worked differently for the knight, and I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't even know if Butcher knows. It's like
Well,
whatever the plot
yeah.
needs.
Then you just kind of get into the battle for mantles and
Right,
things like that, and how it really works. Like, I know, is it really a mantle for Molly like it is for Harry? Like, I
right,
think Harry's a little more disposable, so the mantle's made to be able to move around a little
right.
easier.
Like eventually he'll lose it, but he'll still be Harry.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
But he
I
won't.
don't think like the book is trending towards him being the Winter Knight forever.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job setting up how the mantle felt over the last couple games, right, or the
Hmm.
last couple books, and how much you know, that decision when he took it on, and how negative that impacted him, and how he knew he was going. He's like, this isn't really the side I want to be on; it's the side I need to be on to
Right.
make to get through. And
Yeah, during changes, because he was basically outgunned, outnumbered, lost everything, and he
yeah,
needed an ace in the hole.
yep,
And I love that, like, and um, I love how changes set it up where like because he's running through the options, right? He's losing everything, And I know we're supposed to be talking about Peace Walking Battleground, but I don't care. I can talk whatever.
Yeah,
We
but
won't talk about Dresden Files at large.
yeah.
And if you haven't read them, there's spoilers for the whole series. So you know what? I'm just going to announce it. Spoilers for the whole series. Boom, done. So like when changes happen, I love how because it was the 11th book, and I could be the Winter Knight. I could read the word of Kemler, which was in Deadbeat, the 7th book, or I can accept one of the denarius coins, which was in the 5th. Like I'm running through the ways that I can sell my soul for power, and there's like a bunch of them, and this was the one he chose because I think I don't know. I forget exactly what the circumstances were, but like why he chose that one. But like I think accepting the Winter Mantle, like you were saying before, it's the one that he can like eventually take off.
Yeah, and I think it serves his purpose, right? Like it allows him to retain as much of him, right. And as much as like I don't see like winter isn't evil, summer isn't good, and that kind of comes out again in 16 a lot. It's more like just opposing forces. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the way it's presented, and I think it's done really well. And I think that, initially I didn't understand, like, why is he taking this mantle? Why are we going supernatural? But, the more we're sitting with it, mm-hmm. the more I'm like, I'm getting it. And I like the internal dialogue he has about it, right? Like the mantle's trying to make him do all these horrible things.
It's trying to make him be primal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's trying to make him, kill, mate, the other thing. We'll try to be family friendly here.
Yeah.
But like it's kill, eat, mate. I guess trying to make him do that, and then I think if we have there's a major criticism out there of Dresden books, like it's very kind of horny. Like the women have big bazoombas, and he's always talking about, oh, it's making me want to have sex with her, and I don't want to have sex with her, and it's like it gets a little wearing after a while. Like I definitely noticed it in Peace Talks, like because Laura's there. And she's, the white vampire, big bazoombas and all that. And like, just like women just appear all over the place. And then Harry's like, oh, hold me back.
Yeah.
And that felt a little juvenile. I don't know.
Yes and no. I look at it two ways, right? Like, having grown up with very misogynistic writers in the past, a lot of our
tradition.
Piers Anthony, things like that. Like, mm-hmm. I tried to read some, because Piers used to be my absolute favorite author. And then I go back and I read some of the Incarnations of Immortality that he had, which is still one of my all-time favorite series, but super misogynistic. Yeah, that one. But, it's like, yes, take it in the time. It's not the way we think. But again, with this, I think it's two-part. I think it's showing, that is one of the features of the vampiric houses is that, right? Like, I think
and that particular house, like the White House is sex, and the Red House was like hunger.
Yeah.
And the Black House is power, which we saw the Black House in Battleground.
Right. So I kind of feel like that does make sense. Like, honestly, I mean, he's been attracted to Molly, but it's never been, a sexual thing. It's only a sexual thing when it has that purpose behind it. So I think I think there's a lot of it, but I think it's chosen for specific reasons and to make you feel that character is using that trait specifically for that thing. Right. Mm-hmm.
So, like Harry struggled with the Winter Mantle is probably you foreground it in Peace Talks, like you say before, more character development. Like in Battleground, he's really just like being Superman, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to shoot this, and there's ambient magic all over the place. I can cast all over the place. So like the more you're talking, the more I guess I'm appreciating Peace Talks, and like he's struggling with it, and it's like, okay, is Mab using this to control me? Am I going to lose my freedom that I still have? Right. By giving into this Winter Mantle, and like, cause I think he used it a couple times. He used it to break out Thomas from the Svartal elves.
Yeah, I call them Svartals in my brain.
Svartals.
I actually read these two because I now have no commute, so now I have to read books the old-fashioned way. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, the Svartal. Let's see what James Morris has to say about that. We'll check in with him.
Yeah.
So like I think that so there's actually kind of a whodunit. He doesn't really investigate it, but the whodunit is in Peace Talks. Thomas, so like Harry is staying with or Molly is staying, and Harry's kind of like helping out with the Svartal elves, which is like kind of like what, like, do you know what they are? Like they're kind of a fey warrior kind of,
Yeah, I kind of
those,
envision them as like you said, a winter elf, right? Like,
but like,
hard skinned,
yeah,
but very strict, old, regimented,
right.
very
hmm
very feline features and avian
hmm
features, kind of that's the way I interpret
Like, yeah,
them.
honor code, you
Yeah,
follow the rules
exactly.
and all that kind of stuff. So like, so that's all, and they're interacting because there's a big council. They're going to talk, like, the court business, whatever the court business is. And like, we're going to settle peace between all these different factions. So it's like, all right, fine. And then Thomas goes and messes everything up, and we figure out at Battleground why he did that. But Thomas goes, and I don't know, like I think he assassinates like one of the higher ups.
Yeah, he assassinated somebody and tried to assassinate the head
Right.
of the Spartals, right? Like
Right.
he got one of them and tried for the other. So
hmm
he had in case you didn't figure it out, we're in spoiler territory now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
so they basically caught him doing that, and then red-handed, right?
hmm
Like, and it turns out he totally did it. I mean, he was forced into it
Yeah. So
via
the
something we
case was
learn
why, like,
later.
what was going on there.
Yeah, which we learn about later. And
Mhm.
frankly, we still don't have resolution on. Like, so that's obviously going to be a chunk of 17 coming,
Mhm.
is how that gets resolved, because that's a big, blight against Harry's winter mantle, is the fact that he went
Mhm.
against Mab and the Spartals via Mab. So yeah.
Yeah, by busting him out.
Yeah.
Because because he's the brother, and because Laura's there, and Laura's kind of like, no, you can't, that Thomas is my brother. So they bust him out. They throw Thomas into Demon Reach, just to kind of like for safekeeping, and that's terrible, but they had no choice. And that's kind of peace talks, like
Yeah.
in
That,
terms of
that
like
was
stuff.
really it.
In terms of, well, and there's the peace talks itself, but like in terms
Yeah.
of just like that, and I guess when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah. It
You
was
know?
a huge book of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you had a lot of Ramirez talking about the council,
hmm
a lot of him worried that the council is going to kick him off and he's not going to be a warden anymore.
What do you think about Ramirez? Because he was really annoying in these
Yes.
two, like really, like a really. I like he has his moments. He came by, he's like all
Yeah.
cool, and they made fun of him for being a virgin in the early ones, and now he's like,
Yeah. He's the
like I just wanted
company
to kind
man
of
right
boo.
now. Yeah, he's very much the company man.
Right.
And I kind of have a feeling that they're kind of propping him up because, you know, grandfather Dresden and Harry are going to have something happen at some point, because the old
Right.
man and him are going to butt heads. So I don't know if they're just trying to show the strength of the White Council or the resolve of it and the wardens. Like, I
hmm
think they're just trying to keep some strength in the warden pack, because I think that's the next big battle Harry has, right?
One of
Coming.
them.
Yeah. I
One of
mean,
them.
obviously, I mean, there's a huge chunk of question marks that got both brought up,
Right.
and not many answers, which I found interesting.
I mean, this is book 17, so they have 8 books to go.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of books to be able to kind of tie some of this stuff up. And I was really worried because he didn't, like, Jim Butcher, I think he took like 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, he got divorced and he moved and he wrote other things, and he just kind of like dropped it for a while. And I was really like, as a Game of Thrones fan, as a Name of the Wind fan, I'm like,
didn't want to be abandoned.
no, not another one now.
Yeah. Don't kill it on your senior album here. Like, look, we suffered through the sophomore album. The junior album was great again. And now we're just sitting here waiting forever.
Yeah, right.
No, I think what it is I think that, and again, I'm not taking this from anywhere, but just, this is such a huge pie now, and there are so
Yeah,
many moving parts that I really think he had to literally outline the rest of the series. Like, I have a feeling it could be more than
it's a good
25,
perspective.
because
Yeah.
he might break some up, but I think
hmm
he had to write the entire arc of, at least for the core characters, right?
Sure.
Like, he has to know that in order to make what he's writing now make sense. Like, you can't retcon 15 books of stuff. It's not going
Right.
to work.
I think it's a really good point about peace talks, in terms of like, I was disappointed, but then kind of thinking back to it, they laid a lot of seeds that will show up, and like the Ramirez being a jerk, and it's
Yeah.
like obvious that like, okay, he is now a company man, like he was like, just like a warrior, and then gets promoted, and then like when you get promoted you change,
Yeah. You do.
and that makes total sense. So like playing that seed and laying the seed with Molly, like Molly's kind of like in and out, like she's still a carpenter, she still loves her dad and everything, but she has winter court business,
Yeah.
and a bunch of the other characters. And I think so that was okay. So that was the other thing that happened in Peace Talks and then moved to Battleground was the council.
Right.
And that was a little weird to me because like now you have all these powerful people, and we've seen them before. Like we've seen powerful winter, like winter courts there, and white councils there, and Faravax is there, just kind of hanging out. We haven't really seen what Faravax can do. He's just kind of chilling.
Right.
Excited to see that. That's definitely one of those like Chekhov's dragon type deals where it's like we're gonna get him soon.
Oh yeah, he's definitely coming.
And then like, and this was weird to me, but like Ethneu something.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't like when fantasy series do this in general. I know you're not a big fantasy guy. I am. Like everyone, like the fantasy series when it's like really long, we'll get into this thing where it's like, okay, this is the most powerful being in the world. Oh,
Right.
wait a minute, this is the most powerful being in the world.
Yeah, you have that power creep.
And then you have that power creep of like, okay, I thought Mab was like the queen of air and darkness. She has a twin, and then there's like winter and summer. That's like and then now we have the Titans who can basically make Mab do what she wants. And it's like, okay, that was a little bit jarring to me. And like the fact that like we hadn't established the Titans.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what? And the Eye of Valor, what?
Yeah.
So then the meeting seemed to take like a real left turn. It took me a little bit of a while to kind of like rejigger my brain.
Yeah, which again, I think is why Peace Talk set it up. And then, I mean, but let's be honest, you had to wait 4 months to get the second book. So it was like enough time to like let it breathe and sit on it and just kind of, get comfortable with some of the new stuff that's coming, because we kind of need this breath, because it's going to be a triathlon to the end. It really
Battleground was a sprint. It was.
Yeah.
And I think by the end, it kind of came together. So like if Neo shows up, she's a Titan, and she basically wants destruction. Like that's what the in the mythology, Titans want destruction. It's like, okay, I'm giving you one warning, as like James Bond villain type thing. I give you one warning. This is what's gonna happen. And Mab, I'm coming for you. So like there's a personal enmity towards Mab. So then it becomes obvious that like even Ethneu is this kind of like pawn in a chess game, and it's the outsiders. Like they've established those already. And even in Peace Talks, there was like the corner hounds, so the outsiders like here kind of doing stuff, and I feel like there's like, and those scenes were probably a long time ago. So I was like, then once I read that, I'm like, okay, chess match. This is a big move in a chessboard. So it's like I wasn't gonna get a big resolution. This was just like a big interchange of pieces.
Right, and it just so happened that the one piece was, I mean, one of the biggest. Like I can't imagine there being bigger chess pieces to come. I have a feeling that was probably it. But I think then, the king will be on the board at that point, and Terry will have to deal with that.
Right.
But yeah, it definitely, I think Peace Talks did a good job of setting that up and making you care. I think Peace Talks really kind of set up a few quick things that happened.
Sure.
Like it set up the Murphy. It set up the relationship with Laura. It set up the who's the Bigfoot guy?
River Shoulders.
Yeah, it set up that like you were rooting for him like you would for Hulk or something.
You mentioned you did the pod about Endgame with Mark Street.
Yeah,
and like River Shoulders played the Hulk role.
Yeah, totally.
Of like big dude who is the equalizer in all these little battles, so like it was almost a little bit derivative in a way, but like, but after a while there's so much going on there's no real room to build that character. So it's like, okay, let him kick butt and we'll catch up with him later.
Right. And, he was also that person who dropped the knowledge, that kind of, he buddied up to Harry in Peace Talk. And then that way you kind of accepted him as being that person who could give Harry knowledge throughout the event, because everybody else was too busy.
Like he replaced Bob.
Yes.
And Harry kind of always has a Bob.
Yeah, you need a Bob so that you you like as a literary device, right? Like you
Right.
need somebody that Harry can talk to. Otherwise, it turns into Twilight with, hours and hours of inner dialogue that, is just somebody whining.
Right. Right.
So having Bob accomplishes that. And
Right.
thank God Bob is back.
Bob is back. He never really went away because he belonged to Butters.
Right.
So, but Butters wasn't foreground. Like they really foregrounded Butters here.
Yeah.
And they turned like they became a badass. Like and I'm, like did you see that in your mind's eye, like Butters being a Jedi badass?
I totally did. I kind of envisioned him doing like the whole Bill and Ted's thing where like we need to go like use the booth and learn how to fight with swords and like kind of running off and then kind of coming back and turning into this super badass in what, a book and a half. Yeah, I totally saw like this scrawny guy just like when he charges into the pile, to get
clears
to
it out,
Athenia.
and because Harry needs like a little, he needs to get. I think he needs to get to the beach or something.
Yeah, and Sonya's like having to fight behind him because he can't keep up.
Yeah,
like it was impressive. Like I really dug that. But yeah,
so it was Breathless book, and I think the book did a good job of like kind of set piece. It wasn't just like a big wash of action. It was like there was different movements there. So like I think so where did it start? It started with like kind of like that in breath, gathering the troops, what's gonna happen.
Started with the battle on the boat.
Oh yeah, the Kraken.
Yeah. I mean, like within a chapter, we're fighting a Kraken in the water. And then we finally got our inhale. As they kind of set up and they said, okay, Harry, you don't do anything, which you're like, yeah, right. Like he's going to listen.
Even Mab was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. But that was, as they kind of built up their defenses around, the bean, the battle of the bean, as it were, which was pretty cool.
And then they introduced like the mooks, like the huntsman and everything. So you get the little pieces. You get the river shoulders piece, and you get like they tried to tuck away Karen, but then Karen kind of shows up later, and so then Karen shows up later, but like before then the Jotun show up, the giants.
The giants, yeah.
And it's like, oh wait. And I think and I remember like because I think the first book that really noticed Butcher's skill with this was Deadbeat, where he resurrected the dinosaur,
right?
And you got the sense that like he did a really good job of like he is riding an undead dinosaur right now, and I think like now he is fighting mythological giants. There is no mistaking these things.
Yeah, he did a really good job of painting them, and just as much as he does a really good job like painting the fairies. That kind of really come to his aid.
Oh, Toot
was just amazing, and held off the whole second wave of giants because he kept killing the messengers. I thought that was a nice little touch that like, you might not see him around here, but they have not let anybody out, which was pretty cool. But they were pretty badass too. So
everybody like kind of like all the little, and like, I love the fact that Toot was like from book one.
Right.
Like he got summoned to a pizza in book one, and like now we're paying it forward. Now he's like 5 feet tall and like rippling with fairy muscle and everything. Just kind of like really paying off all these little developments. Like that's what you want in a long fantasy series, or any series. You just want like a reward for your investment. You definitely got it here.
Right.
And then you have a bunch of battles. We don't have to like kind of go over the whole thing, but then the next big thing that happens. Well, first of all, the Black Court shows up.
Right.
So Mavra, who observant book readers will know, she's not dead yet, and there she is, and apparently it was her idea to kind of like bait the White Council into showing up. So it's like either we resurrect a whole bunch of creatures and we get something, or we suck out the White Council and we kidnap 2 of them, or 3, or however many they got. So
and turn them, as it were. So I think as we kind of talk about potential setups for future books, I think that's a big one. Because that was just a hit and run. Like they just came in, did that hit as an attack of opportunity, and they were out. Like that's it. Like they're gone.
They still got in 5e D&D. They still do attacks of opportunity and all that. That's all. That's all in the book.
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. But it was just like, dude, they just came in, they beat them up, and that was definitely a one-sided fight with the way that they were able to just kind of shift around and just move without even thinking. Was
Right.
they were did a good job setting them up, because they were scary things.
And they made it believable. Like that could have been a total plot device. That
Sure.
like they show up and they like kind of like suck some resources and leave, but it makes sense that like they're looking at what's going on. They're looking at Corb and Ethnium and going, they're not winning anything because they're kind of dumb. So we're gonna take advantage, get what we want, play the longer game, and kidnap two,
Right.
possibly three, council wizards, and like we have vampire wizards, which Butcher I think revels in that stuff, just like the oh my god,
Yeah, it's gonna be, we're gonna get, white walking wizards soon. But they'll be black walking, I guess, technically,
Yes.
won't they?
Mm-hmm. And was it Dracul? Something like, I think it was Dracula's father.
Yeah.
Just like,
So,
okay, all right, we're doing that.
yeah. So it's interesting. So I have a feeling that might be, because was it ever really clear who was pulling the strings on? Like, we knew what's her name was making Dresden's brother commit that murder and do that thing. Justine, right? We knew that happened, but did we ever really know who was pulling that string?
It said he who walks beside,
Yeah.
which is an outsider.
Yeah. So, how the Black Court figures in with the outsiders, I don't know.
They might not. Like the Black Court, they're so old and they're just like doing their thing. They just might be taking advantage of opportunities.
And so I think that's an interesting setup. I think Harry's relationship with the White Council is interesting, because he's never, like, when he became, a warden, I was kind of shocked. I think it's like, that's like when you become the night shift manager, because you think it's awesome in somebody's eyes, but it's probably not the best move for you. Right? Like
they're giving me this promotion. I'm getting a raise.
Yeah, but it's like a marginal raise. It's just like, I kind of feel like that's kind of what it was like when he became a warden. Like, he didn't gain anything.
I'm a late night talk show host, and like Bravo is offering me a 1:30 in the morning slot. Okay, all right.
Yeah, this will be great. And you're just kind of like, but deep down,
never gonna end well, yeah.
Like I should do it and I want to do it, but I totally don't want to do it. I think that's how he feels.
Speaking of like dropping seeds, they dropped a hint that the council has like a bigger plan for Harry. Like they're looking, they know a larger war is coming.
Right.
Something is happening, like some kind of larger apocalypse is coming. They have some sort of like a prophecy or some kind of like, future telling that like Harry's going to be important, and they're not telling it.
Yeah.
And that seed is dropped. It's like, okay, I forget exactly who. I think it may have been Dracul or somebody else. They're like, like you're this is not it. Like, they're not telling you something. You better figure out what that is.
Right. Yeah, I think it was Dracul, because it was around that part of the book, and it's just, yeah, they want to use him, but then they're going to kick him out at the same time. It's like, why wouldn't you keep him closer? Like, right. I don't get the White Council. I kind of feel like they're kind of like this huge old, stodgy, entrenched. I'm not trying to make metaphors to anything that's going on currently.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm not.
But that establishment, right? It's that establishment, and it's just Harry's not.
Well, it's like a buddy cop movie, right? Like how in a cop movie like Die Hard, right? So like you got Die Hard, you got what's his face in Nakatomi Plaza, and you have like what's his like what the Family Matters father is outside helping him, and then you have like the jerk sergeant that's out there causing trouble for no reason whatsoever. Get him out of there. He's not a real cop. Blah blah blah. And like that's kind of the I'm trying to think of the White Council as better than that, but right now they're not giving me much to go on.
Yeah, and aside from like River and his protege, name's escaping me, Those two definitely, like the Indian blood definitely seems
Oh,
to
listens to
resonate.
win. Listens to
Yeah,
win.
listens to it. I wanted to say walks. I'm like, nope, that's not right. Um,
Not a walker. Not a walker. It's wrong IP.
is that a bear flying through the sky all of a sudden?
Yeah. Kodiak bear. It's like, yes, there he is.
Let's just drop out of the sky from a bird to a bear
That's
midair.
awesome.
That
I love
was
it.
amazing, because that's exactly what you do, right?
Mhm.
But I think like that's his only corner on the White Council that actually might tell him. Like I have a feeling it's going to come to a point where Listens has to tell Harry
Right.
what this prophecy is, because it sure as heck ain't going to be his grandfather, because that is such a contentious relationship.
I wondered. Okay, so the Black Court thing happens, and then the White Council kind of like disappears off the field for a while.
Yeah, like
Like,
they weren't out there doing anything.
I think they tried to intimate that they were like at another part of the battlefield doing whatever, but like they never really spelled that out. So it's like you get, because you look, it's a movie, right? So you're looking for like the big debuts and like, and
Sure.
I'm reading the book. I'm like, okay, where's the White Council? Where's the White Council? Where's Ebenezer? Where's all these people? They're not doing anything, and then they show up kind of like way at the tail end.
Yeah.
So that didn't make much sense. But but like, yeah, I guess like the main thing was accomplished. Like they really got dealt a blow. They lost a couple of senior members, and then the Black Council, the Black Court just disappears. Council, court, and whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get the big kind of emotional gut punch
Oh,
because he
yeah.
finds out that the orphanage is there, and then Rudolph and the other cop are there, kind of protecting, and it turns out that one of them had their kid there, and then Murphy shows up, which Murphy, like, I couldn't. It was weird. Like, as I read him fast, I couldn't visualize like her injuries. Like, she kept on saying she's hurt, she's injured, she's hurt, she's injured. She's riding a motorcycle and then she's on a wheelchair. And it's like, okay, I'm not really sure what's happening.
Yeah.
But they're trying to give the impression that she's really hurt.
Yeah.
Shows up with the rocket launcher, kills the Jotun, that he and Harry were dueling, and then she gets killed.
Yeah. I mean, and I hate when there's senseless death, right?
Yeah.
Like I hate that plot device. I get it because it just kind of it really adds to it. Like if she would have died with the Jotun, it would have been, a glorious death. But the way I think Harry's reaction to it was critical, right? Like the way that he relayed that story, and the fact that he didn't really give Rudolph up. Like the fact that he didn't just like kill him right then and there.
I was mixed about it. I think like the way they did Karen's death, they kind of made it about Harry and not about Karen.
It was very Tasha Yar. It was,
Who's Tasha Yar?
Security officer, next generation, like they just got killed by a black puddle of goo, like just malicious being out of nowhere, right? It just kind of that's what Murphy was, and it took Dresden to kind of elevate that, mind you. But
I guess like I think the way it was written, it made it like it made it about Harry. Like it made about like, okay, so Karen gets killed, and now it's like focus on Harry. Is he going to kill Rudolph or is he not? And how is he kind of dealing with this internally? And then he kind of moves on, like he's thinking about it, but like he has a lot to do.
Yeah.
Even through like the end of the battle, like also this stuff after, I still don't feel like he's kind of like really taking a breath. He's just kind of like arguing, and like it's I know it's a Harry Dresden novel. He's the first person character, but like I just felt like almost like Karen. I don't know. Like maybe it would have been better if she had died to the Jotun.
Yeah.
It would have been big and glorious as opposed to kind of like this thing, which made it about Harry and not about like Karen. I don't know.
And I think it's you kind of brought it up a little bit there. I think there's two different people in Harry's mind too. I think there's Karen and I think there's Murphy. I think Karen's the one he loved, and I think Murphy's the one he fought with, right?
Right.
So, I think if the Jotun would have killed her, Murphy would have died. But I think the fact that it was, somebody from the police force that Karen used to work with killed her, then I think that distinction was very, very clear, even to the point where he goes, Karen, not you. And she says, like, from you, I like Murphy. It's just like, it was just kind of saying like, you need to move past Karen now. You need to move
Mm,
on. You know, as
mm.
Murphy would want you, not as Karen. Like,
Right. Karen is
sorry,
too
Dresden.
broken to
Yeah,
there's too much mush there. Let's just go
yeah,
with Murph and
yeah. And I think as far as her wounds go, the way I'm looking at that is I just think that's. I think yes, there's a ton of physical there, and you know, having that clear picture of it. I kind of put the movie bandages on, right? Like, you know, oh wait, the sling's on the wrong arm. You know, like I think it's really just to show
right.
that, you know, she's just worn down. Like, I think that this life is just too much for her. And I
It
think it just
definitely,
wears her
yeah.
out.
Like she became like a less well realized character towards the end. Like
Yeah.
as soon as she started like hooking up with Harry
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
all that stuff, like I am like her destiny was supposed to be like she was supposed to be the wielder of Amarachius,
Right.
right? Because that's what they saw. I think in one of the books they're like, okay, you are a knight, and she kind of actively rejected that path for a very like she did almost like she didn't feel that she was worthy of it.
Right.
So it's almost like by not accepting that destiny, I'm kind of like talking through it as we're
Yeah,
talking.
exactly.
Like that's the good part. That's why I want to do this. Like it's almost like by not like embracing that. Like she could have because Harry still has Amarachius. It's
Yeah.
there. It's just chilling. He never picked a new wielder, and he's like, Karen, this is yours. No, no, no. It's almost like by not accepting that path, she became like a lesser character,
Yeah.
and she was just kind of like ticking the clock down until
Yeah.
it kind of ended.
Yeah, and I think Harry loved her, no doubt. But I think it's that kind of love where you love the person, but you just kind of know that
Right.
this is the 2 year high
This was
tide
on the
me
clock. This
over.
was yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we kind of felt that, and I think you're right. Like I think when she didn't take that up, which, you know,
Right.
means she really didn't embrace. I don't want to say embrace the lifestyle that Harry
Well,
has,
like her
but
fullness, like her full potential. Like that's her
yeah,
full potential was to be a big badass sword wielding, chocked with power type person. And
yeah,
she just took that. It's almost like she diminished herself. And like the books are good at that. The books are good at like broken people,
yeah,
like that don't embrace their
yep,
destiny. Like Harry is that way in a lot of ways, and Karen is that way, and Susan was that way.
yep.
Like she kind of like had that thrust upon her.
And I think we start to see Molly is, you know, I
Hmm.
think, you know, you kind of have this very cherubic view of Molly. And I think this time you get to see like, no, she's breaking, but she's breaking from the
Right.
inside out,
Right.
which I find interesting.
And they kept her tied with the carpenter, so we're not going to get that time bomb. That time bomb will explode later.
Yeah, it's
Right.
yeah, it's probably going to have to happen.
But
But
later,
the
because she's still tied with her dad, that's what happens at the end. She's still there, like you mentioned before, Michael, and seeing his further adventures. I have a feeling that like that is going to fray, but they have time now. Where
right.
with Karen, her time was like now that I'm kind of thinking of it, her time was kind of up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think mortals in this battle are kind of done. You
Right.
know, I think this was the last time that we're going to see like mortals in the thick of it, right? And
That's a
Murphy was
really good
kind of
insight. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
she was kind of like the last real holdout. I mean, every other person aside from the army and you know the banner call,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
you know, everybody else is pretty much, you know, has some level of power on
They
some
have to
other
have something in
plane.
their back pocket. They have to have a magic sword. They have to be a caster. They have to be
Yeah.
sponsored by somebody.
I
Right.
mean, my hope was, you know, kind of that, you know, there was kind of a hope where, you know, when they were coming back in the boat and all that, and then, you know, I was kind of hoping maybe there'll be a way for, you know, I totally forgot about the sword, but I mean, that would have been a perfect vehicle. I mean, Jim had the ability right there to,
Right.
you know, for her to take it up at
Hmm.
that moment, and maybe it would have healing properties. Like
Yeah,
there's
restore her. Like it. Yeah.
yeah, so I think they could. I think the opportunity existed, but I think the dark light battle.
Hmm.
I think that's going to be fought with Butters because Butters is kind of Harry's boy, but at the same time, totally not. You
I can
know,
see Butters at some point pulling a Ramirez and just kind of like turning on Harry.
yeah, but I'm kind of hoping it'll be more on the Michael line, right? Like where
Okay.
it'll be a, you know, that kind of like I think something's going to happen at some point, and I think that relationship is going to ground Harry again.
Mm.
Like because Michael's gone, right? Like, and Sonia's really he's just like, point me at stuff and we'll make it righteous. But I think Butters is now going to potentially be that person who calls Harry's humanity into question. Because I don't think there's many people left who can do that.
Because Ramirez did it in a way of like, you are now a monster, right?
Yeah.
Like he isn't just being a jerk. He's like pointing out something that's important, right? You are now on their side. You have less humanity, and like he obviously goes a certain way with it. Like, okay, he thinks Harry's kind of like lost, so to speak, and Butters is pointing at the same thing. Like, this, you are a monster, but like I still care about you,
right?
And I'm wondering if they're setting it up where that's going to get tested too.
Oh yeah, it's going to have to. They need to forge that relationship a bit. And, just like Harry struggled with Michael and, the gray line of the two, getting caught out in technicalities, Butters he hasn't been tried that way yet, right? Like he's just been training. So I don't think aside from when he actually took up the sword and held up just the little hilt and it sprung to
against
life.
Nicodemus, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then I think that was a good test moment, but I don't think he's had, that kind of that friendship test and that peer test that Harry is probably due to give him.
And it's almost like Karen didn't, like, she had that test and she just decided to not take it.
Yeah, because she was just always on Harry's side. And then once they started dating and sleeping together, she was 100% Harry's girl. Like,
right.
So,
and that's it. Like, not her own person anymore. She was Harry's girl.
The conscious objector is gone, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And police objection doesn't mean anything anymore, to Harry. He obviously doesn't care.
Yeah, so. I love how you put it, like, the human elements are gone. Like, they've leveled up past the police at this point.
Yeah,
like, he is going to just traipse by the police at this point. He's like, what, screw you guys.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of one of the other really big setups is that, that's going to happen. And yeah, I mean, but there's, I mean, come on, there are two huge things to talk about. And one is obviously the fight with the gangster,
Marcone
on the beach, and him turning out to be the Black Knight.
The Blackened Denarius or something like that.
Knight of the Blackened
Denarius. Yeah.
Yep. Which is, it's interesting to see that relationship is different than Harry's. Like that is more of a personality that he manifests, right? Like as opposed to Harry's, which is just kind of this primal mantle, as you put it, that just kind of drives him and powers him.
Yeah, I think, well, we've seen Thormnasio before. Like Thormnasio was with Nicodemus and Tessa and like all that, like they were a gang, so to speak, in one of the previous books. And like Thormnasio was always like like the wizard of the group, like, taking the long view and, it's like, say, okay, let's, plan this out and let's build our power and everything. And now like now it's become obvious he's teaching Marcone how to be a practitioner.
Yeah.
And you can tell that like they're it's almost like they're approaching it as like, we are equals, but we have things to teach each other. Like we are consciously using each other. Like Marcone's not being possessed.
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of, because it's a being and a being, whereas the mantle is just
a force.
Force. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting to kind of see. I don't know. I as far as the villains go, like I kind of like Marcone the least.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I struggle with gangsters in general. Like I hate gangster movies. Like don't even get me started on like Goodfellas and all that. I don't know.
Casino.
Yeah. I just don't like the praise of it. It's not something I like. It's just, I just don't like it. Right? Like Godfather, couldn't care less. Like if the print burned in a dumpster fire, I'd be okay with that.
I think they try to tell you that these are deep characters, right?
Yeah.
They try to pass it off as, well, he's a father and he has these dimensions, but like it always turned like there's no gangster movie where they like really question like what they're doing, and there's like they're always default to, I'm gonna beat guy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna bleep that out.
You're gonna edit this? That's impressive. That's a lot lot of work.
Now I've officially I have to put on a mature audiences thing over there for that one little slip, but that's okay. So like that's what happens. Like, at the end of the day, the mobster is going to beat the crap out of somebody, and like that's what their
Yeah.
priority is, and like it never changes. So
Yep.
like with Marcone, they had the one book, and I think it was Small Favor, one of the Nicodemus books, where Marcone has like a niece or like somebody he's caring for, like a small girl, like, okay, this is the heart, this is why he does it, or whatever it is, and
Right.
this is where his weakness is, but it's never come up again.
Nope.
And it's just like Marcone is just like on this like constant level up. He's get more powerful here. He's a member of the Accords. He's at the council now. He has
got
and it's just this like uninteresting kind of like ladder upwards with him.
Yeah, and I know what's happening, right? Like it's the whole thing where they're trying to get him, so when Harry has that fight and it's actually one-on-one, it's a fair fight.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually it won't be, right? Because Harry never fights a fair fight. He's always on the lower hand. Right. So I kind of feel like that's coming. I kind of look at that voice as kind of like his Bob, right? Like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the relationship with that.
Right.
But I don't know. I struggle with him. I like that, like, Harry always gets these little one-ups, but he never wins, right? Like, you got the whole mansion at the end, but, mm-hmm. That's it. Like, it's just the house. It's very old and it's cool, but, it's not the apartment. It's not the basement and the lab, and it's not that stuff.
And he's not going to keep it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of so when I talked with a couple of other friends about this, and like they read it before I did, and they're like, you know what, like at the end of this all, so obviously kind of going through the book, they it's the whole bunch of battles happen. Mab is involved. She's kind of like down, and Titania, whatever. She gets involved. The Summer Queen. She gets taken out, and it's now like Harry and Marcone versus Ethnio. And she's weakened, and they've taken all sorts of stuff out of her, but she's still a demigoddess, still a Titan, and it takes the combined might of Marcone and Harry and everything to take her out. And then actually, what was I going to say?
The house. We were talking about the house.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the house. So when my friends were talking to me, they were like, "Oh my God, this is level changes. Like everything's different now." And I felt like, not quite. Like, Harry has a better house now. Like he already had an island, so now he has a house. Like he has a house and an island. And he lost Murphy, and Murphy was a very important loss. But I think as we're talking, like it didn't feel like a big loss. And now I realize why. Like it's just she was a human.
Yeah. And
humans were never meant to last through like this phase of the war. Like you have to have power.
Right.
So I didn't feel that, like, I felt it on the intellectual level, like, oh my God, they did something big.
So
it wasn't like,
so again, if she would have died at the giant's hands, you would have felt that even less. The only way you feel it was that it was a tragic death, right? So I bet you that the first draft of the book had the giant killer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or something else, right? And then So I bet you that probably got switched. And I'd be curious to know, because it kind of feels like you needed that, because you felt it even less than I did. I mean, I felt it, it definitely choked me up a bit, and I'm kind of like
a shock moment more than like a gut punch. Like when Harry stabs Susan and changes. Yeah. That was rough. That was a rough one because, obviously she hadn't been around in a couple of books, but she's back and she's fighting her stuff, and Harry has this thing, and there's a daughter involved, and like it's in front of her daughter, like all this, like they really up the emotional stakes of this one. Here it's like, okay, it's a giant cosmic war.
People around Harry die. That's all it felt like, right?
And the human beings around, if you are not smart enough to get somebody on your side or like some kind of power, you are going to die. And it's like, oh, sorry, Karen. But then, well, look what you chose. You chose a bazooka over the magic sword.
I think it'll be funny if, my one wild call prediction is that Harry will find that in the basement of the castle, his old lab still exists. The trapdoor is still there, and the lab is still there.
They never actually deconstructed.
He destroyed the house, but he built over the lab and left it there because he wanted to know Harry's secrets at the time. And
I
maybe he
think, yeah.
found the denarius coin that way. I don't know. It could be.
That's a great point. I have to go ahead and go back into the book and see if the denarius coin and like more of them
Hmm.
are in the castle.
Yeah, or were they in the, Harry's lab before it went up and stuff? I'd be curious.
No, that's a really great observation. I wonder, like, because like that seed. Speaking of seeds, so like it's funny how in the 17th book they're still planting seeds. Uh,
There's going to be corn cropping up for days on that one.
but like, what else is hidden? Like
Yeah.
there might be other stuff. Like, okay, did we resolve Evil Bob?
Yeah. No.
Like when that showed up in Ghost Story, like it like Evil Bob could show up again.
Yeah.
And that could be part of what's going on, and like there's so many like different potential things that could happen now. And so even though like, okay, so Battleground was just like it exploded in a mushroom cloud, right? So like it was a whole bunch of things. They finally got F Neo, but I definitely got the sense of like, okay, this I love, and at the end of the day, I love this book
Hmm.
because it gave that big dramatic cinematic punch that I wanted, and still told you we're just getting started.
Yeah, it felt very Empire that way, right? Like
Yes.
it felt like this
Hmm.
is a good note, but at the same time, it's a downbeat,
Right.
right? Like it's one of those, like it really. I mean, it took us 60 books to get here.
You're right.
I guess they're all the prequels, but we wouldn't say that. But yeah, it kind of hit that note where it was just like it was furious and it was some bad stuff happened. Karen got frozen in carbonite. It was, a lot of those little moments, but
Mhm.
we kind of ended with a little bit of an uptick, but this bigger, darker thing looming out
Like
ahead.
multiple bigger Tharker things. So like you have
Yeah.
the like one book will be maybe even not one book, but like threaded or out. But like the White Council has to be addressed, and then
Yeah.
the Black Court has to be addressed, and then like Thomas has to be addressed, and like the Thomas Justine thing. And I guess Thomas and Justine now fold into the outsider story
Yeah.
because Justine is possessed by an outsider now.
Yeah. The
And
Laura wedding has to be resolved too.
which one?
So
Oh,
the
Lara.
fact that Mav
I
that
forgot about
Mav
that.
all right. So I have a feeling that that's probably going to be like where the next book kind of picks up,
Yeah.
is going to be around that point where the wedding's supposed to happen, and does it? I mean, like Mab usually gets what she wants, but Harry also usually finds Weasley ways for a lot of things.
Right. Is that the point where he weasels his way out of the mantle?
Maybe,
Is
because
that how he gets out of it by weaseling out of the mantle and acquiring some other kind of power?
he's going to need it though, because he's not a warden anymore.
Right.
you know but I have a feeling that that's peeling room for the other point that I was going to bring up, which is now all of a sudden we're dealing with the fact that he's got the Schwartz because now he's starborn. So
I don't even know what that is. Like what? Like
nobody
I missed it.
no
Like what does that mean? The Starborn.
it means nothing. It was brought up. Well, it means nothing yet, right? There's no
Right.
context for it. We don't know, but we do know that Dracul cared about it
Yes.
because that was part of the
Hmm.
plan, and Mab knows about it, and obviously
Right.
the White Council knows about it.
Right.
So I have a feeling that that's going to be, that has to be, maybe that's a mantle that comes up that
Some kind of
causes,
like other
yeah,
thing that he acquires.
because
Like I
he's
mean,
going to need it to
mhm.
power up.
Like he's gonna need more. Like
Yeah.
and like this, like he is going to need more in order to deal with it because he is losing. Like I know that the knights, like the Knights of the Cross, stood with him like really solidly, but something is telling me that he's not gonna have them.
Yeah.
Like they are going to be needed elsewhere, and he is not going to have them. Like I'm not really sure. Like why I get this feeling that like Butters in particular is going to be like you are turning into a monster,
Yeah.
and I can't help you. Like because like Michael is that kind of like open-hearted, endless forgiveness type, and I just don't see Butters as that.
No, Butters is very rational.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, and I don't think he has he also doesn't have the relationship with Harry. Because remember, that was a very, I don't want to say cantankerous relationship, but it was,
It
it
was
was
very
not an
useful.
easy
Like
one.
they were useful to each other.
Yeah, but it was
Mhm.
more Harry taking,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. Oh
know.
yeah. Sew me up. I got into another accident, and I need this
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So it was very much, that kind of relationship. And then now all of a sudden, Butters has the strength to resist. So
Mhm.
I think the Laura story, whatever the Starborn thing means, I think that's the next big power grab
Yeah,
for
I'm gonna have
Harry.
to go. I'm sure there's like forum theory crafting on what the starboard is. I gotta
Yeah.
read up on that. I should have done more homework on the starboard and all these little other prophecies and stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be out there. So I'm curious to see what that's going to do,
Hmm.
right?
And it might not be a source of power. It might just be like this is a thing to position you into your destiny.
Right.
And like the thing that you need to beat the outsiders or like restore balance in the universe is going to be elsewhere. I'm not really sure, but
Hmm.
I have a feeling he's going to shed that mantle.
Yeah, I think you're right because I think it's too raw for what he's going to need for the final
Right.
fight, right? I think he's going to need something a little more, you know, focusable and something that can actually magnify more of his magic than
Right.
just, his cold blast,
Hmm.
you know.
And something that like gets him away from Mab, because I don't see Mab as somebody, and they included, they kind of like hinted at it where like Harry would like say, well, I'm appealing to their love, and Mab is like staring at him. What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, like her
So
humanity is so like 0.5% left.
right.
They gave
And
her some, which was nice.
yeah, because
But
she said I was immortal once.
well, I bet you what's going to happen is, my theory was Mab dies, um, what's her name takes over, and then that's how Harry's able to get out because
Molly just kind of
Molly,
like says you are dismissed. You are needed elsewhere.
or he's going to pull that cord before she gets lost, right? In Map. And that's got to be an incredible mantle that
Mhm.
it's just going to totally crush her Molliness.
Yeah, right. That's
you know?
what Mab said. Mab said, "If I die, kill Molly Carpenter."
Yeah, because she's not ready for it.
Right.
But maybe she will be in a book. Maybe there's she's grooming her for it, obviously.
Mhm.
She's not grooming her for Summer Lady.
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
Right. So we have so I guess we can kind of look forward. Like I think you like Battleground, right? As a
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
uh,
I
uh,
like them both, but
mhm. Yeah, for
I
different reasons, but yeah.
I look at them as a whole, right? Like that's it's like A New Hope leads right into or I'm sorry, the new one leads right into A New Hope.
Right.
I kind of feel like it's the same thing. Like Rogue One, I think it.
There's a trail, like you can see the trail, and we'll see like the ultimate culmination.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
if you look at it, it's like it's a whole book of build up and rest, like you say.
Right.
But
But yeah, it definitely wasn't Change's level. Like it
no,
wasn't
no,
like Changes was definitely like, okay, because I mean at the end of Change, Harry dies, and like everything is kind of like shunted. So like it wasn't like now everything is different. Like there are definitely kind of like things that are, but I still feel like I'm playing the same game.
yeah,
After the like a lot of moves happen, but like the game is still, the players are still kind of obvious. We know more things, but now we're like looking forward to kind of like that theory stuff, right? So
yeah.
now we're getting to Lara, which is a little, I don't know, that felt a little comical to me, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think she's kind of the comic relief in that a
Right.
little bit. But I think it's also to give him a foil that he doesn't necessarily really care about, but he does a little bit,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Like I think he cares about her in buddy cop kind of way, not the lovey way that they're kind of being told,
Hmm.
So I think that it's do I think they'll end up together? I don't know.
Who, Harry and Lara?
Yeah, I don't think
No,
that
no, no,
marriage
no.
will happen. Yeah, I
I
don't
think
think
the
it'll
marriage
happen.
will happen. I think
Maybe.
that like Jim likes to torture Harry.
He could be Job. He could be Job
I think because I think
Dresden.
he's actually said that, and he stepped away from it a little bit because in the first couple of books like Stormfront and Fool, like Harry got his butt kicked, and people were noticing that. It's like, wow, you really like to torture Harry, dude. He's like, yeah, I really do. So I feel like now we're getting into like that psychological, like life torturing. So it's like we're gonna give you Karen and we're gonna take
Yeah.
her away. Now you're stuck with the the vampire succubus. Deal with it. So I have a feeling that we are going to get Harry, Laura figuring it out. They may even father a child together.
Maybe.
Just on like royal decree, just like we need to solidify the alliance and all that kind of thing. I have a feeling we're gonna go like, not that Harry's gonna end there, but we're gonna go like further down that road than we think.
I'm wondering if Laura could become the Summer Lady. I wonder if that would,
That would that would be really messed up.
right? But I don't know. I
Right.
don't see anybody who could fill that. I mean, it's, Molly needs to, it's what they teach you in business. You got to train your replacement. So, Molly's not doing that because she's too busy learning the ropes. But,
Right.
I think the whole getting thrown at something before you're ready is classic. And
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised it didn't happen.
What
I
didn't
kind
happen?
of, that Mav didn't get killed and Molly didn't get that. There's
I
part of
could
me
have
that was
seen that.
expecting
Yes, that definitely could have gone that way. Where
because
Mav,
Harry
this
wouldn't have
was
killed her. No way.
right.
Unless she forced him, but there was no implication that Mav, used that favor power speech that she has on him.
Right.
So to compel him to do it. So I didn't get that.
Right.
Hmm.
All right. So we approve. This was an
Oh,
excellent book. I mean, there's more to come. I think like for I'll give it like I'll go like 9 out of 10, like 8.5, 9 out of 10. It wasn't my I actually like this because there was some little dissatisfactions I had, like niggles that like
yeah.
this isn't epic enough. This isn't epic enough, but like it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. It is I'd have to remind myself it is coming, like because they said that the last 3 books are going to be just kind of like this full on trilogy apocalypse type thing, all cards on the table. And I think he mentioned that Amarakis is going to come back. That's when Amarakis is going to come back into play.
Okay.
Someone's going to kind of acquire that, and then, or maybe even like Karen as an Einjarn or something like that will that'll be the realization of the thing because she's like reborn as this like
Well, but that
Valkyrie.
could also be the redemption of Harry,
Mm.
right?
He
Because
becomes like that. That's where he gets his.
yeah, so
Mhm.
there's so if we follow like what the classic hero's journey in the trope, right?
Right.
Like is that his, this his temptation by the dark, and then he ends up turning at the end. I think that's conceivable that he
Sure.
could either, take over and reinvent the White Council, or he could, take Amarakius and kind of do
Right.
that. We also have to, like, they never really, I think, you know, his buddy listens to wind. He's
Hmm.
probably going to be the one to die to kind of do the Obi-Wan thing, right?
Right.
Like,
Hmm.
I think that somebody on that level has to die for him
Mm.
so that he can kind of, he needs to get that next level of information that,
There's
that,
still a lot of missing pieces, and then it has
yeah.
like it listens to when is one of the only pieces on the board that has it that can give it to him.
And still is on Harry's side,
Right.
if
Hmm.
we're going to use that term. Um, so yeah, I kind of feel like, yeah, I think he's due, sadly.
Well, Chris, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I for a while there, I'm like, wow, I haven't had this conversation about like because I've done it for Game of Thrones. I used to have like a group that talked about like the Song of Ice and
Right.
Fire and all the theory crafting and stuff. And I feel like Dresden was always more kind of rock'em sock'em popcorn type
Yeah.
fiction, but there's enough there where you can really kind of go down that track as well. And thank you very much for indulging me. And I hope this was fun for you as well.
No, it's a blast. I'm sorry I'm horrible with names, but it's like my wife doesn't like the book, so it's just something. It's a me thing. So to be able to actually talk about it and kind
Awesome.
of work through theories is fun because that's what good books should do, right?
Well, hopefully we go back because they were released yearly for a
Yeah,
while, and then like if we can get back to that kind of schedule, then I would absolutely love to have you back on. Maybe get some other people involved, whoever wants to. Maybe people listen to this to become fans. And they kind of like, okay, wow, I was just reading this, but now I see the extra level that these books are presenting. So let's a nice jet stream uptake of
yeah,
enthusiasm. So thank you so much, my friend. We
no
will not be
problem.
strangers.
This has been a lot of fun. Thanks.
Oh, but before we go, where can the peoples contact you? You used to run the Game All Night program, and now you're working for Renegade. So maybe you can tell people, where you are.
I do a lot of stuff. I actually, so you can still find me at Game All Night Show You can find me everywhere, and Night is spelled Nite. That may come back. It was a late night board game talk show, but with everything that's going on, I put it on hiatus, and
Sure.
so we'll see what happens there. But I also do a 18xx podcast. If you like big, heavy train games, I do that once a month.
I'm skipping that.
Yeah,
You see
you're
my
right.
shelf. I'm skipping that.
Yeah. So I enjoy that. It's called wheel tapping.
Oh, wow.
And I currently work for Renegade and do I basically do contract work at this point, both graphic design, and I also do video production. So yeah.
All
But
right.
I'm their events manager. So that's fun.
All right, my friend. We'll see you around. We'll not be strangers.
Absolutely not. Please not.